Hello, 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 and welcome. So we started on last week talking about 21 ways of perfecting your messaging so that you can reach people across all platforms. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that the first half we talked about 10 of those things out of 21. So today we're going to continue that conversation because it's not about posting or writing more, right? It's not about creating more images. It's not about creating more infographics or anything else about creating more. Perfecting your message is all about consistency and staying in front of your ideal client on a regular basis in their regular daily conversations. So let's get started. First, let me introduce myself. I am Rasheeda Green. I am the mompreneur, the CEO, founder of Mompreneur HQ, where we help moms to start, grow, and scale virtual home-based businesses so that they can build the life of their dreams without neglecting themselves or their families in the process. If you are here, you know that we are all about helping our community by way of coaching. We afford the opportunity to coach women and moms with starting their own businesses. So if they have questions about business, starting the business, about choosing an entity, about marketing, about finding out which might be a better suit for them as far as the business opportunity, we are here to assist in that. We will be rolling out quite shortly some new and exciting things that we are doing in the background of Mompreneur HQ. We're going to start bringing you into the foreground of that building up because we want to be accessible to you. And we want you to be able to get the help that you need. So yes, we do let you know that we are here, that we're here to help through coaching, but also through programs and through courses. And that is coming up pretty soon. I am so excited to be here with you talking about perfecting your message because, as I always say, what I am talking to you about is either something I have learned the hard way, or am still in the process of learning. So this is not a magic wand. This is not something that's easy to do, easy to come up with, but with practice and with help, it can be done. So last week, we talked about a few things, but before I even get into that, let me not forget, please feel free to invite someone to this live broadcast. If you are finding value, please definitely share, like, comment, share. If you're here live, put in the comments #live. And if you are on the watching this on a replay, put #replay. And whatever questions or concerns that you have during this live, make sure that you drop them in the comment field and we will look to address them. Likely not during the broadcast, but certainly we will address them for you. So one of the things that we talked about, the first thing we talked about is using a time tracking sheet, right? So that's one of the ways to stay on task. Schedule and plan out your content creation, because what happens is if you don't schedule it, it won't happen. Then we talked about considering Instagram, because Instagram is really this tool that everyone is using to get their point across. And again, Instagram is mainly pictures, but if used properly, you can transition any type of Instagram community or influence into part of your profitable business. Then we talked about using transitional phrases. So how to keep your content and your messaging flowing is by using connecting phrases or transitional phrases so that they don't have to stop one thought and start a whole nother thought based on what you're saying. The next, we said, get rid of weak beginnings. So when we're using those fluffy words and things that are just taking up extra space and word count, get rid of those things because it only weakens your message. We also said to stay with your message. Sometimes we can go off on a tangent, and I have been the demonstration of that in some of these lives where I will be talking about one thing, but something jumps out in what I'm saying that I want to going off to the side. Now, the thing with that is tangents are not so bad if they are relevant, but you don't want to get so far off task that you don't get your initial message across. So that's what we want to make sure that we stay clear of. Then we said we want to get specific with our hashtags. You should, with your own business, should have a specialty hashtag that you use. And then you can, of course, use other people's hashtags to get in front of their audience. So when they're looking to, if you're using something like entrepreneurship, anybody who's looking up hashtag entrepreneurship will be able to see all of the hashtags or all of the material content that was using that hashtag. However, when you're using something like hashtag entrepreneurship that has millions of connected content, your content may get lost in the sea of entrepreneurship hashtags. So you want to make sure that you're using your personal one. You want to use a local hashtag somewhere in your community, whether if you are a fitness guru and you want to use a hashtag that the fitness gym or the other fitness related entity is using in your area, that is a great way to get in touch with or in front of your local community. Then also, if you are in, say, Chicago, whatever your city is, you want to get their city, then you want to go out abroad. And that's a great way to get in front of a new audience. So we want to make sure that we're using hashtags effectively. Then you want to make sure that you are writing and displaying your main points when you're doing your content, because again, sometimes we can go off on a tangent and lose sight of our message. When we are messaging, we want to use you, Y-O-U. We want to be able to talk to the people in our community. Whoever it is that is your ideal client, you want to make sure that you're talking to them and not going around them by saying we, our, and everyone, because then again, you're not speaking to them directly. And so their ears kind of tune you out because it's like, well, who's she talking to? Right? So we want to make sure that we are using you messaging to literally talk to who it is that you want to attract. Then use interrogative words. So we talked about who, what, when, why, and where. You want to be able to use those words in and explain them in your content. So whatever it is that you are communicating, and that's what we stopped with last week. That was our point number 10, and we want to continue on now with our point number 11. Again, if you are here with us live, hit hashtag live so that we know that you are here, and that if you have any questions, do drop that in there. We would love to be able to reply to your messages, and make sure you stay to the end so that you'll be able to hear what we have for you today. All right. Number 11, we want you to use relevant images. Relevant images. If you are using stock photos, even if you're using photos of yourself, right? That's something that we're starting to see a lot more people using photos of themselves to make themselves appear more relatable and more relevant to whatever it is that they're coaching on, right? So you want to use relevant images in your content. If you are talking about daisies, that's your content. That's what you're talking about. So what would be relevant? A picture of daisies. But if you're talking about being sad or something, some trigger in your messaging that is invoking an emotion in your reader, then using daisies in a story about loneliness, you don't want daisies to be forming a smiley face on the beach or forming a smiley face in the garden of other flowers, right? If you're talking about loneliness and isolation, and then you have this smiley face of daisies, that is not relevant. It's not cohesive to the messaging that you're sharing. right? So what could you do with those daisies? Daisies is generally something very happy, pleasant, smiley. However, if you had a field of daisies or a bunch of daisies tied together in a line, and then there's this one daisy that's withering in there in the midst of those daisies, that is an example of relevant imaging based on a story about loneliness. There's this one withering daisy in a sea of thriving daisies. Think about it. So that's what we mean by having relevant images when you're talking about your content, whatever your content is. Make sure it's relevant, right? Then another thing we want to do is be wary of using particular jargon and cliches and little writing tics that, again, are not relevant and only confusing your target audience, right? If you want to make your writing resonate in your true voice, then don't use jargon. It makes you sound as if you're parroting everyone else. So because they're talking about power sawing, and you're just talking about power sawing, and power sawing is nothing that is in your, is not really anything relevant to what you're talking about. If you're talking cliches, you don't want to make an emotional impact because people have stopped listening to the cliches and these expressions and these phrases that everyone has, and now it's become more watered down, so it does not have the same impact or effect. And when you start using words and expressions, especially for me, I'm a 90s girl, I love 90s music, 90s television. And so sometimes I make these references to 90s, the 90s genre, and a millennial might look at me confused. There's some, if I start talking about The Color Purple quotes and things like that, I say something and somebody would be looking at me like, who hasn't seen the movie, which is usually someone who is not in my age group. They'll be a lot confused. So sometimes you just want to avoid using certain jargon, cliches, phrases, and things that might not be relevant to everyone, and it might not be relevant to your content unless you are specifically talking about that particular genre of music, movies, and things like that. Then you probably want to steer away from that. All right. So upgrade to premium. That is tip number 13. Upgrade to premium. Sometimes you just need to just pay the little extra because in the long run, it can benefit you greatly, right? So when I say upgrade to premium, there are a lot of free resources, and I'm not knocking free. Whatever you can get for free, get for free. But understand that there are some things that, once you get them for free, they don't have the same benefit. Now, the way technology works now, a lot of things, good things, are free. And they make it free because they have so many other competitors. So they're like, well, if this competitor is giving this for free, I'm going to give mine for free. Plus, I'm going to give this extra benefit. So because of their competing against one another, we kind of benefit because we get all these free tools for free, and they help us in our business tremendously. And one of those tools when it comes to writing is Grammarly. Grammarly is free. And it allows you, it's a tool that you can use to check your writing to make sure that it is consistent, succinct, that it is grammatically correct. And the word order, the word choices, like if you have singular versus a multiple use word, it can help you in so many ways. And it really does help to have spell check. Even if you are the greatest speller in the world, sometimes words that are spelled correctly won't show up when you do a word, when Word does the word search, spell check, because it is actually spelled right. But then you might see the green squiggly line, that's for grammatically incorrect. So, Grammarly does that, but it does just a little bit more. So when it's time to proof your copy, you don't want to just rely on spell check. So you want to use something like Grammarly. And it is actually one of those things that you might benefit more from by using the premium version. Because when you use Grammarly to check your written work, and other programs such as Pro Writing Aid, they will point out your bad writing habits and help you to instantly correct and eliminate them. So those writing tools will help you to stay focused and on task with your writing. So definitely something like Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid is something you may want to consider investing in the Pro version. Now, perfect your first paragraph last. So after you've written all of the work, the body of work of your copy, once you've written all of that, you want to make sure that you go back to the beginning and make the beginning as strong as possible. You want to make sure that you have a strong hook. And you want to try to put off perfecting the first paragraph until you've written the whole entire chapter or the whole entire sales copy, because or the whole entire article or email. Because if you try to do it first, you may find that you have to go back and redo it. So, do write it out so that it flows, but don't try to stay there and perfect it and make it the best, and trying to nitpick and then go down to the rest, because you may find that there's some better copy or some better words that you use in the second or third paragraph that will really be more impactful in the first paragraph. So definitely try to think about that in your writing style, because once you've written it and you see the whole thing in front of you, you kind of have a better picture of what it is that you were looking to write and what it is what you were trying to convey. And then you can now go back to the first paragraph and really make the first paragraph pop with what it is that you want to communicate to your people. All right. Now, we are moving on to number 15, right? So number 15 is also going to tell you about taking time for creative processing. So right now, I am not creatively processing, but I am creatively taking a break. I am not in my normal environment because I took a little time away. And that is actually a good thing. It is part of self-care, and I definitely recommend self-care as a mompreneur, particularly because we have enough hats to wear that it sometimes gets a little weary. You can get a little weary, a little bogged down, a little stressed out, burned out from doing everything. So you definitely want to take some time away. I talked about that in one of the groups I was in, Abundant Health for Christian Women Entrepreneurs. And we talked about how necessary it is to make sure that you do self-care on a regular basis, right? So now, we want to take time for creative processing. Make sure you schedule blocks of time for processing and idea generation. So we talked about time blocking or scheduling, because we know that if we don't schedule, we kind of like forget about it, or we put it on the back burner and it becomes on the back burner and it becomes on the back burner. So we want to make sure that we're fitting activities that are going to engage the left brain, leaving your right brain free to spark ideas. When you're focused on repetitive activities with a physical component, that's when your muse often gets busy. And so you have to leave her room to work, right? You want to go for walks. You want to do yoga. You want to get a massage, take long bubble baths, walk through a garden, ride a horse. Hey, even do the dishes. Sometimes just doing the dishes or vacuuming, it is work, but it's not using the other side of your brain, where you can actually start getting creative juices going. So you want to try to do things like that. That's going to break up the monotony and allow you to be able to breathe. And when you do that, make sure you have a notebook or journal beside you so that you can then jot down those ideas as they come, because sometimes it's just like a flood. It's like, oh no, you know what? And then this and this, and they start connecting. I had that experience, and I had a whiteboard because I didn't have a pen. And I had the whiteboard that I brought with me for the kids. So, we could play like picture games and stuff like that, or word games on the whiteboard. And I couldn't find nothing else to write with. So I took the whiteboard and the marker, and the ideas just started pouring out onto the whiteboard. And the best I could do was take a picture of that with my phone and then erase the whiteboard so that we can continue playing games. But it was good to have something there so that when the thoughts started flowing, then I was able to write it down. So think about that. Take out time for a creative process. You should not be on 24/7 work brain, right? Take some time for yourself. Then number 16, we want to know your purpose. Remember, if you want your message to be clear and focused, then you have to decide before you write what you wish your article or your email or your post, so that you have a goal for your business, have goals for every piece of content you write. It should have some connectivity. It should be related. In blogging, they talk about pillar posts, right? Those are pillar posts are posts that are maybe a long form post with a lot of words, like maybe 1,200 words or so. And they speak specifically to the main crux of your blog. So if your blog is about health, in wellness, then maybe you want to have a health section, a food section, a mental health section, and a physical health section. So that those are three pillars of your health and wellness blog, right? So those are three things that you want to talk about. But in those three things, there are so many other topics that you can talk about on those three umbrellas. You can talk about carbs in one, and you can talk about whether they're healthy or not. You can talk about amino acids and fatty acids. And so many things that I think I kind of went awry with that, but it's just so many things that you can talk about under one pillar post or one main topic. So as you are building your business and you're perfecting your message, when you talk about what your message is, it's okay to be able to have three pillar posts or three main points of your business that you're going to be sharing with people, and then have little subcategories underneath that. That is perfectly fine. The thing is, you just want to make sure that you have those pillars, those specific things that you can talk about. And here's another tangent. I'm sorry, but I have to put it in here. If you are keeping those three pillars of messaging, of pillar posts that you're keeping, your three main points, then you will always have content. Why? Because if you take one of those points and that one point has 20 points under it, you can just keep recycling and repurposing and just re-talking about those same 20 topics. That's so broad. If you have 20 different topics that you can talk about for one per week, that's 20 topics. That's 20 weeks. You only have 52 weeks out the year, right? So now you have this second pillar that has 20 topics. That's another 20 topics. That's 40 topics out the year. 40 weeks that you have covered in content. What if that third pillar has 10 to 15 different topics that you can talk underneath that? Now you have at least minimum 52 weeks of content that you can talk about regarding what it is that you do, your business, what it is, the people that you serve. You have these topics already available to you. So you want to know your purpose in your messaging so that you can stay task oriented and stay on point in talking to those who you wish to reach. Another tip: use your ideal client's language. I'm sorry, sometimes I don't get it right, because I went to a school where talking different ways, talking big words, it was a regular conversation. It just didn't. So sometimes I don't realize that I'm using big words, or what some would call fancy words, just to say something basic, because that's something that I just do in regular conversation. And it's not that I don't want to use the words and I don't want to be authentic to who I am, because that's what I use. If that's the words I use, that's the words I use. But I want to be able to communicate with my ideal audience. And so if my ideal audience is using pow pow, we could do a pow pow. Pow pow instead of spanking, or what have you, we just do pow pow, because that's what, my ideal client may use pow pow. Or, in business, we might be using different terms and terminology and different phrases. Remember, we talked about earlier in our earlier point, we don't want to use a lot of jargon and business language as far as our tip number 12, but we still want to be able to communicate effectively and still be authentic and still be relatable. So if you understand what I'm saying, not using words that nobody's going to understand and just confuse the people that you're talking to, be like, well, never mind, I'm not interested in that conversation. So let's just make sure that we're using we want to mirror the language that our communities are speaking. So we want to look at the overall style. Does your client speak in short, clip sentences and get to the point straight away? Or does she like to talk about her inner intuitions, using metaphors, imagery? What power words does she use? And what is power to her? Just like, what is wealth to you? You might be saying wealth as money, and somebody else might be referring to, your ideal client may be referring to wealth as time freedom, whereas someone else might be thinking of wealth as health. Well, health is wealth. There are so many different ways, but that's what we need to do as business owners, is to get in tune with our ideal client so that our messaging addresses them and they get it. It speaks to them particularly. Then we want to check your assumptions at the door. So what that means is, if you haven't really researched or tested or gauged your audience, then rather than assume that this is what they like, assume this is what they want, ask the question. Ask the question. There's nothing like asking a question to find out what it is that someone really wants to know. And sidebar, I'm going to start asking questions in the group. I know that I put out there a survey, not a survey. It was a questionnaire. I wanted to know about you and your business. I asked you to put your information in the questionnaire so that I have access to all the people in that group to find out what it is that they do, so that if I or anyone else in the community needed someone who does what you do, then we can reach out to you, and you have now a networking opportunity. Now we can network, we can reach out, and then you may even build clientele from putting that information out there. I have someone in my group who is someone in Mompreneur HQ who is a virtual assistant. I was able to reach out and utilize those services. I have someone in the group who is a publisher. I was able to reach out and get some assistance with publishing. We actually have people in our group who are authors. So they may have a book that you might be interested in, or a service that you can provide. We have an educator who has the Village. We have Dr. Rosalind Gaskins, who is an educator, and she has a group called the Village. The Village, because it takes a village to raise a child, right? That's an African proverb. But these are people in the community who can possibly help you. So if we can do that, help each other out, that would be excellent. And that's why I have that questionnaire out there. Go ahead, put in your information so that we know who you are. And then when we get ready to start doing these live interviews, Facebook Live interviews with our community, then I'll have access to you, be able to tap you on the shoulder and ask you to speak to the Mompreneur HQ about what it is that you do. All right, so let's do that, right? Let's move forward. Now we're going to move on to number 19. We want to identify your reader to herself. And that basically means just calling her out. When you're doing your communications, don't just say somebody or everybody. Say, hey, open this if you're a busy mom, work at home mom with kids not yet in school. Or betting you could use 5 minutes of meditation music. Because the kids in the background, the kid noise in the background is really not music, right? These are things that you can say. Here's your daily affirmation. What it is that I'm telling you, what it is that I'm giving you. Be specific. Then 20, Don't compare yourself with competitors because they may be 2 miles down the road. You can't put yourself in their position and say how good they got it and how well they're doing, because they are likely ahead of you. So you'd have to, the time between what you and your competitor might be weeks, it might be months, it might be years. So comparing yourself to them is not beneficial to you. If anything, it starts to seep in as doubt, self-doubt. It can also come in as imposter syndrome. You start thinking that you're not good enough. So leave that competition to the side. Don't worry about their message. Don't copycat them, because then to the people that you're trying to reach, you're going to look like a copycat. And then what happens is now they're comparing apples to oranges, and they're saying, well, maybe I should get the oranges over there because these apples are trying to be like these oranges, and they can't be, right? So let's not imitate or copy a style of another person. Be you, be authentic. People love people who they can relate to. If you're too busy trying to be someone else, they're not going to be able to relate to you. And last point, number 21, and we're going to wrap this thing up, is repurpose and recycle your best content. Repurpose and recycle your best content. You're putting out content, whether it be YouTube videos, TikTok videos, IG stories, reels, whatever it is, whether it's a blog, whether it's your website, Facebook posts, whatever it is, make sure that you're looking at the analytics. Look at how they're doing, how they're being viewed, how many people are viewing it, if it's YouTube, how long people are staying on your page. Look at the analytics and then pull out your best stuff and stick with that, because what that says is that this is good. This is what people like. This is what people want. And they're going to, that's going to resonate more with them. All right. So thank you so much for being with us here today. As we are live from South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So we want to go back to the beach. So thank you so much for hanging with us. And if you want to book a call so we can talk about your business idea and hash out some points with you and see if we're a good fit for a coaching relationship, why don't you just go ahead to www.themompreneurhq.com/clarity-call and you can book an appointment to speak with me so that we can get your business started or to help your business get to growing. All right. If you have if you haven't already gotten your information into the spreadsheet, I will go ahead and post it again. So make sure that you do that. And last but not least, I am so glad that you were able to join me today, whether it was #live or #replay, because this is some good information that I hope that you were able to get, draw from and glean from regarding messaging. Make sure you're getting the message that you want your people to get out in the world, clear and concise, so that that you were able to get to them and they're able to get to you, and that you would have a profitable business. Thank you. Until next time.